gonna be okay. You'll be okay. Whiskey for the pain. I don't. Paige?
Please, can you love
Lisa.
Imagine We spend our lives in search of the other half.
I think something's happening to us.
In a world pulling people apart, one couple must fight to hold on to love, to hope, and to each other. Through laughter, pain, and everything in between, their story reminds us what it truly means to be broken bar together. This is Together only on M Cinema Reviews. Together is a 2025 supernatural body horror film written and directed by Michael Shanks and his directorial debut. It stars real-life married actors Dave Franco and Alison Brie as a couple who relocate to the countryside, where they encounter a mysterious force that grotesquely alters their bodies. The film premiered at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival on January 26, 2025. And was released in the United States by Neon on July 30, 2025, followed by an Australian release through Kismet Movies on July 31. It was met with positive reviews from critics and has earned $18.4 million worldwide. Millie Wilson takes a job teaching elementary school English and moves to the countryside with her longtime boyfriend, aspiring musician Tim Brassington, who has grown emotionally distant since the recent death of his parents. Before the move, Millie proposes to Tim at a farewell party thrown by their friends, but his hesitation to answer leaves her embarrassed. While hiking near their new home, the couple becomes trapped in a cave during a rainstorm and decides to spend the night inside. Tim drinks from a pool of water, then recalls the traumatic night he discovered his mother in bed with his father's decaying body. The next morning, they wake to find their legs partially stuck together, but they separate and dismiss it. Soon, Tim experiences strange episodes of being physically pulled toward Millie, leaving them both confused and frustrated. Millie's co-worker Jamie McCabe visits to welcome them, and during dinner, they tell him about the cave. Jamie reveals it was once a New Age church before it collapsed. When Millie drops Tim off at the train station for a gig, he experiences another episode and forces himself to her workplace. In a public restroom, Millie angrily confronts him, but they end up having sex only for their genitals to become stuck together. After painfully separating, they are spotted by Jamie. Later, Millie visits Jamie to apologize, and the two discuss her strained relationship with Tim. Jamie shares Aristophanes' theory about soulmates and urges her not to give up on her other half, mentioning his late husband. Millie leaves abruptly after seeing a disoriented Tim outside. A doctor dismisses Tim's symptoms as panic attacks, prescribing muscle relaxants. He almost mentions a local couple, Simon and Gary, who recently disappeared. Investigating their social media, Tim sees photos showing they visited the same cave, marked with identical symbols. He tries to warn Millie they may meet the same fate, but she dismisses him. That night, they are once again drawn together by a supernatural force, their bodies twisting until their arms fuse. In panic, they take Tim's pills to stop the process before passing out. Tim wakes tied to a chair as Millie saws through their joined limb. She decides to drive them to the hospital but realizes she left her keys at Jamie's house. Tim promises to wait but instead returns to the cave, where he finds Simon and Carrie fused into a horrific humanoid form, with Simon's half stabbed in the neck. At Jamie's house, Millie discovers a wedding video of two men she doesn't know, followed by footage of a ritual in which they fuse together. Jamie, revealed to be the fused form of those men, insists they're happier as one and urges Millie to finish the process with Tim. When she refuses, He cuts her arm in the same place as in the ritual before she escapes. Millie reunites with him, who tells her about the creature in the cave and concludes it was the result of resisting the fusion, leading to Simon's death mid-process. Determined to avoid the same fate, he prepares to slit his throat to save her, despite her pleas. Millie begins to bleed out from her wound, but Tim fuses his arm to it, saving her. Accepting their destiny, they confess their love, slow dance the two become one, and merge into a single being. That weekend, Millie's parents arrive to visit. Knocking on the door and now marked with the cave symbol, they are greeted by an androgynous, seemingly normal person. In-depth analysis of the casting for Together, 2025. The 2025 film Together, directed by Zoe Kravitz in her directorial debut, represents a significant cinematic endeavor, blending a surreal drama with a heartfelt exploration of love and human connection. The film, which stars Dave Franco, Alison Brie Damon Herriman, and Mia Morrissey, has garnered attention not only for its intriguing premise but also for its carefully curated cast. This article provides a comprehensive 10,000-word analysis of the casting process for Together, exploring the actors' backgrounds, their suitability for their roles, the dynamics of the ensemble, and the broader implications of the casting choices within the context of the film's narrative and thematic goals. Drawing from available information, including the IMDb full credits page for Together, 2025, this analysis delves into the artistry, strategy, and cultural significance of the casting decisions. Introduction to Together, 2025. Together is a surreal drama that centers on a couple whose bond is tested by a mysterious force, prompting a heartfelt fight for love. The film's narrative, described as emotionally resonant and visually inventive, relies heavily on the performances of its lead actors to convey the complexity of relationships under extraordinary circumstances. The casting of Dave Franco, Alison Brie Damon Herriman, and Mia Morrissey reflects a deliberate choice to blend established talent with emerging stars, creating a dynamic ensemble capable of navigating the film's unique tone. This article examines each actor's contribution, their preparation for the roles, and the collaborative chemistry that shapes the film's emotional core. The casting process. An overview. Casting a film like Together requires a nuanced approach, balancing the need for recognizable names to draw audiences with the necessity of authentic performances to suit the surreal and emotional narrative. Zoe Kravitz, known for her acting roles in films like The Batman, 2022, and Big Little Lies, 2017 and 2019, brings a fresh perspective to directing, and her choices reflect a desire to prioritize emotional depth and versatility. The casting process likely involved auditions, chemistry reads, and consultations with producers to ensure the ensemble could deliver the film's ambitious vision. The IMDb credits list provides a foundation for understanding the key players, with Dave Franco and Alison Brie as the central couple, supported by Damon Herriman and Mia Morrissey in pivotal roles. Dave Franco, the charismatic lead. Dave Franco, cast as one half of the central couple, brings a wealth of experience and charm to Together. Born on June 12, 1985, in Palo Alto, California, Franco has built a career on his ability to blend comedic timing with dramatic depth. Known for roles in films like The Disaster Artist, 2017, 21 Jump Street, 2012, and Now You See Me, 2013, Franco has proven his versatility across genre. His casting in Together aligns with the film's need for a lead who can convey vulnerability, intensity, and relatability. Background and career trajectory. Franco's career began with supporting roles in television shows like Scrubs and films like Superbad, 2007, where his youthful energy and natural charisma stood out. Over time, he transitioned into more complex roles, showcasing his dramatic range in films like The Disaster Artist, where he portrayed actor Greg Sestero opposite his brother, James Franco. His ability to navigate both lighthearted and emotionally charged roles makes him an ideal fit for Together, where the surreal elements demand a grounded, authentic performance. Suitability for the role in Together. Franco likely plays a character grappling with the mysterious force threatening his relationship. His expressive face and ability to convey subtle emotions make him well-suited to portray a man caught between love and existential uncertainty. Franco's prior work in films with unconventional narratives, such as Rental, 2020, which he also directed, suggests he can handle the surreal tone of Together. His chemistry with co-star Alison Brie, his real-life spouse, adds an extra layer of authenticity to their on-screen relationship, a factor likely considered during casting. Preparation and approach. Franco's preparation for Together would have involved delving into the psychological complexities of his character. Given the film's surreal premise, he may have worked closely with Kravitz to explore the emotional beats of the story, ensuring his performance remained grounded despite the fantastical elements. Franco's experience as a director himself likely informed his collaboration with Kravitz, fostering a mutual understanding of the creative process. His ability to balance humor and heartache, as seen in The Disaster Artist, positions him as a linchpin in the film's emotional narrative. Alison Brie, the emotional core. Alison Brie, cast opposite Franco as the other half of the central couple, brings a dynamic presence to Together. Born on December 29, 1982, in Hollywood, California, Brie is known for her roles in Community, 2009–2015, Mad Men, 2007–2015, and Glow, 2017–2019. Her ability to portray multifaceted characters with depth and authenticity makes her a perfect fit for the film's exploration of love and resilience. Background and career highlights. Brie's career spans television and film, with standout performances in both comedic and dramatic roles. Her work as Annie Edison in Community showcased her comedic timing, while her portrayal of Trudy Campbell in Mad Men highlighted her ability to convey quiet strength. In Glow, Brie earned critical acclaim for her role as Ruth Wilder, a struggling actress turned wrestler, demonstrating her physicality and emotional range. Her versatility makes her an ideal choice for Together, where the surreal drama requires a nuanced performance. Suitability for the role. Brie's character in Together is likely a woman navigating the challenges of a relationship under strain. Her ability to convey vulnerability, strength, and determination makes her well-suited to this role. Brie's prior work in emotionally intense projects, such as Rental, where she starred alongside Franco, suggests she can handle the film's complex tone. Her real-life chemistry with Franco enhances their on-screen dynamic, providing a natural foundation for the couple's bond. Preparation and collaboration. Brie's preparation for Together likely involved exploring the emotional and psychological layers of her character. As a seasoned actress, she would have worked closely with Kravitz to ensure her performance aligned with the film's surreal vision. Brie's experience in ensemble-driven projects like Community and Glow suggests she thrives in collaborative environments, making her a key contributor to the film's cohesive ensemble. Her ability to convey raw emotion, as seen in Glow, ensures her performance will resonate with audiences. Damon Herriman, the versatile supporting player. Damon Herriman, an Australian actor known for his chameleon-like versatility, adds depth to the ensemble of Together. Born on March 31, 1970, in Adelaide, South Australia, Herriman has built a career on his ability to inhabit diverse roles, from historical figures to fictional characters. His casting in Together reflects a strategic choice to include an actor capable of elevating the film's supporting roles. Background and notable roles. Herriman is best known for his portrayal of Charles Manson in Once Upon a Time near Broken Bar in Hollywood, 2019, and Mindhunter, 2017–2019, where he brought chilling authenticity to the infamous figure. His other credits include Justified, 2010–2015, The Underground Railroad, 2021, and Judy Punch, 2019. Herriman's ability to shift seamlessly between genres, from drama to dark comedy, makes him a valuable addition to Together. Role in Together. While specific details about Herriman's role in Together are not fully disclosed in the IMDb credits, his casting suggests he plays a pivotal supporting character, possibly tied to the mysterious force challenging the central couple. His ability to convey intensity and ambiguity, as seen in Mindhunter, makes him a strong candidate for a role that adds complexity to the narrative. Herriman's presence likely serves to heighten the film's surreal atmosphere, providing a counterpoint to the emotional core of Franco and Brie's performances. Contribution to the ensemble. Herriman's versatility allows him to adapt to the film's unique tone, whether his role is comedic, dramatic, or somewhere in between. His experience in ensemble-driven projects like Justified suggests he can seamlessly integrate with the cast, enhancing the overall dynamic. Herriman's ability to disappear into his roles ensures that his performance will add depth without overshadowing the leads, a critical balance in a film like Together. Mia Morrissey. The emerging talent Mia Morrissey, a relatively new face in the industry, rounds out the principal cast of Together. While less is known about her compared to her co-stars, her inclusion in the film highlights Kravitz's commitment to showcasing emerging talent. Morrissey's casting suggests she possesses a unique quality that aligns with the film's vision, potentially bringing a fresh perspective to the ensemble. Background and early career. Limited information is available about Morrissey's prior work, but her casting in a high-profile project like Together indicates she has demonstrated significant potential. Emerging actors often bring a raw, unpolished energy to their roles, which can enhance the authenticity of a film's narrative. Morrissey's role, while not fully detailed in the IMDb credits, is likely integral to the story's emotional or surreal elements. Role and potential impact. Morrissey's character may serve as a catalyst or foil within the narrative, contributing to the mysterious force or the couple's emotional journey. Her relative newness to the industry allows her to approach the role without preconceived expectations, potentially delivering a standout performance. Kravitz's decision to cast an emerging actor reflects a bold choice to blend established stars with fresh talent, creating a dynamic ensemble. Growth and collaboration. As a newer actor, Morrissey likely benefited from working alongside seasoned performers like Franco, Brie, and Herriman. Her preparation would have involved intensive collaboration with Kravitz to ensure her performance aligned with the film's tone. Morrissey's inclusion in Together positions her as a talent to watch, with the potential to make a significant impact on audiences and critics. Ensemble dynamics and chemistry. The interplay between Franco, Brie, Herriman, and Morrissey is central to Together's success. The real-life relationships between Franco and Brie provides a natural chemistry that enhances their portrayal of couple in crisis. Their shared history in projects like The Rental suggests they can convey both tenderness and tension, essential for the film's emotional stakes. Herriman's intensity and Morrissey's fresh perspective complement the leads, creating a balanced ensemble capable of navigating the surreal drama. Chemistry reads and rehearsals. The casting process likely included chemistry reads to ensure the actors' dynamics worked on screen. Franco and Brie's established rapport would have been a starting point, with Herriman and Morrissey integrated to test the group dynamic. Rehearsals under Kravitz's direction would have focused on building trust and cohesion, allowing the actors to explore the surreal elements while maintaining emotional authenticity. Collaborative process. Kravitz's directorial approach, informed by her own acting experience, likely emphasized collaboration and improvisation to refine the performances. The ensemble's ability to work together would have been crucial in scenes depicting the mysterious force, where the actors needed to react organically to abstract concepts. The combination of Franco's charisma, Brie's emotional depth, Herriman's versatility, and Morrissey's freshness creates a rich tapestry of performances that elevates the film. Cultural and industry context. The casting of Together reflects broader trends in the film industry, particularly the emphasis on diverse ensembles and the inclusion of both established and emerging talent. Kravitz's decision to cast a mix of recognizable names and new faces aligns with the industry's shift toward authenticity and innovation. The film's surreal drama also taps into a growing interest in genre-blending narratives, requiring actors who can navigate complex emotional and stylistic terrain. Representation and diversity. While the IMDb credits do not provide specific details about the characters' backgrounds, the casting of Together appears to prioritize talent over tokenism. The inclusion of Morrissey, an emerging actor, suggests a commitment to fostering new voices, while the established credentials of Franco, Brie, and Herriman ensure the film's commercial viability. The ensemble's diversity in experience levels creates a dynamic that mirrors the film's exploration of connection and resilience. Industry implications. The casting choices for Together have implications for Kravitz's directorial career and the actor's trajectories. A successful ensemble performance could elevate Kravitz's reputation as a director capable of drawing nuanced performances from her cast. For Franco and Brie, the film offers an opportunity to showcase their chemistry in a new context, while Herriman's role reinforces his status as a versatile character actor. Morrissey's performance could serve as a breakout moment, positioning her for future high-profile projects. Challenges and considerations. Casting a surreal drama like Together presents unique challenges, including finding actors who can balance emotional authenticity with the film's abstract elements. The mysterious force at the heart of the narrative requires performers who can convey both concrete emotions and existential uncertainty. The ensemble's ability to meet these challenges will determine the film's impact on audiences. Balancing tone. The surreal nature of Together demands actors who can shift seamlessly between grounded and fantastical moments. Franco and Brie's experience in both comedic and dramatic roles equips them to handle this balance, while Herriman's intensity and Morrissey's fresh perspective add depth to the ensemble. Kravitz's direction likely played a key role in guiding the actors to maintain a consistent tone. Managing expectations. With Franco and Brie as recognizable names, the film carries expectations of strong performances. Herriman's reputation for transformative roles adds pressure to deliver a memorable supporting performance, while Morrissey's relative anonymity allows her to surprise audiences. The casting process would have considered these dynamics to ensure the ensemble met both artistic and commercial expectations. Conclusion. The casting of Together, 2025, represents a thoughtful and strategic approach to assembling an ensemble capable of bringing Zoe Kravitz's directorial vision to life. Dave Franco and Alison Brie provide a compelling emotional core, their real-life chemistry enhancing the portrayal of couple in crisis. Damon Herriman's versatility and Mia Morrissey's emerging talent add depth and freshness to the ensemble, creating a dynamic interplay that supports the film's surreal drama. The casting process, informed by Kravitz's experience as an actor and her vision as a director, reflects a commitment to authenticity, collaboration, and innovation. As Together prepares to captivate audiences, its cast stands as a testament to the power of thoughtful casting in shaping a film's narrative and emotional impact. This analysis, while constrained by the limited details available from the IMDb credits, highlights the strengths and potential of the Together ensemble. The film's success will ultimately depend on the actors' ability to embody their roles and connect with audiences, but the casting choices suggest a promising foundation for a memorable cinematic experience. Together, 2025, a comprehensive analysis of production, release, and reception. Together, 2025, is a supernatural body horror film that marks the directorial debut of Michael Shanks. Starring real-life married couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie, the film explores the complexities of a relationship under the strain of a mysterious, grotesque force that physically binds the protagonists. With its premiere at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival, Together garnered significant attention for its unique blend of emotional depth and visceral horror, achieving critical acclaim and sparking discussions about its themes of codependency and intimacy. This article delves into the film's production, release, and reception, providing an in-depth exploration of its development, filming, post-production, music, theatrical release, home media prospects, box office performance, and critical response. Production development and pre-production. The genesis of Together lies in the creative vision of Michael Shanks, an Australian filmmaker who transitioned from short films to his first feature-length project with this ambitious horror drama. Shanks, who also wrote the screenplay, drew inspiration from his 15-year marriage, infusing the narrative with personal reflections on the dynamics of long-term relationships. The film's central metaphor of physical fusion as a representation of emotional codependency emerged from Shanks' exploration of how relationships can simultaneously bind and challenge partners, a theme that resonates throughout the story. In February 2024, The project gained momentum when Dave Franco and Alison Brie, a real-life married couple known for their work in films like The Disaster Artist, 2017, and Rental, 2020, joined the cast. Their involvement was a significant coup for Shanks, as their authentic chemistry and shared history brought a layer of emotional realism to the film. Franco and Brie also served as producers, alongside Eric Feig, Mike Calap, Andrew Mittman, Max Silva, Julia Hammer, and Timothy Headington, under the banners of 30 West, Tango Entertainment, and Picture Start. These production companies provided the financial backing for the $17 million budget, a modest sum for a film aiming to blend practical effects-heavy horror with a character-driven narrative. The casting process was notably streamlined due to the involvement of Franco and Brie, who were pitched the script by Shanks' agent. Their decision to star was driven by the script's bold premise and its potential to showcase their ability to navigate both dramatic and horrific elements. The supporting cast, including Damon Herriman as Jamie, was assembled to complement the leads, with Herriman's role as a seemingly benevolent neighbor adding an enigmatic layer to the story. Pre-production involved meticulous planning to ensure the film's practical effects, a cornerstone of its body horror aesthetic, could be executed within the budget. Shanks collaborated with effects artists to design prosthetics and set pieces that would evoke the visceral style of David Cronenberg and John Carpenter, influences that are evident in the film's grotesque imagery. However, the pre-production phase was not without controversy. In May 2025, filmmaker Patrick Henry Fellon filed a copyright infringement lawsuit against Shanks, Franco, Brie, Neon, and Endeavor, alleging that Together was a blatant rip-off of his 2023 film Better Half. The lawsuit claimed that Better Half, which also explored a couple physically fusing as a metaphor for codependency, was pitched to Franco and Brie in 2020, and that they rejected starring in it to produce their own version. Shanks vehemently denied the allegations, asserting that he wrote and registered his first draft in 2019, predating the pitch for Better Half. The lawsuit remains unresolved as of August 2025, but it has cast a shadow over the film's development, prompting discussions about originality in the horror genre. Filming principal photography for Together took place in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, despite the film setting in Washington state. The decision to shoot in Melbourne was driven by cost considerations and the availability of skilled crew members, as well as Australia's growing reputation as a hub for genre filmmaking. The production spanned a tight 21 days, a challenging schedule given the complexity of the film's practical effects and emotional performances. The filming process was marked by the physical and emotional demands placed on Franco and Brie. One of the most striking elements of the production was the use of practical effects to depict the couple's physical fusion. A notable scene involved the characters' genitalia becoming stuck together after a passionate encounter, requiring lifelike prop genitalia supplied by Shanks' partner, who worked for a sex toy company. This unconventional sourcing added a layer of authenticity to the scene, which was both shocking and integral to the film's exploration of intimacy. Another challenging sequence saw Franco and Brie wearing a prosthetic that conjoined their arms for extended periods, forcing them to coordinate movements and even use the restroom together, mirroring the film's themes of inescapable closeness. The cave set, a pivotal location where Tim and Millie encounter the mysterious force, was constructed to evoke a blend of natural and supernatural elements, with pews fused into rocky walls and a bell adorned with a swirl icon. Cinematographer Jermaine Mcking employed a moody, atmospheric style to enhance the claustrophobic tension of the cave scenes, drawing inspiration from Alien, 1979, and The Thing, 1982. Shanks' direction emphasized practical effects over CGI, aligning with the tactile, visceral quality of classic body horror. However, the tight schedule required careful coordination to balance the effects-heavy sequences with the character-driven moments, ensuring that the emotional stakes remained at the forefront. Post-production for Together was a critical phase, as it involved refining the film's tone to balance its horror elements with its relationship drama. Editor Sean Leff played a key role in shaping the pacing, ensuring that the escalating supernatural events complemented the emotional arc of Tim and Millie. The editing process emphasized the gradual build-up of tension, with key scenes like the bathroom stall encounter and the arm-sawing sequence crafted to maximize both shock value and emotional resonance. The visual effects team, while relying heavily on practical effects, incorporated selective CGI for the film's climactic transformation sequence. Critics later noted that this digital-heavy finale was less effective than the practical effects used elsewhere, a point of contention in an otherwise cohesive post-production process. Sound design was another crucial element, with the team using bone-crunching and squelching sounds to enhance the body horror aesthetic. The soundscape, combined with Cornel Wilczek's score, created an immersive experience that underscored the film's themes of convergence and tension. Music. The film's score, composed by Australian musician Cornel Wilczek, was a vital component in establishing its emotional and atmospheric tone. Released on August 1, 2025, through Lakeshore Records, the score consists of 18 tracks with a total runtime of 42 minutes and 52 seconds. Wilczek described the score as built around their romance, with the main theme serving as a soppy love song that was manipulated to mirror the physical transformations of the characters. Tracks like The Ultimate Intimacy in Divine Flesh and Thirsty All Over, a love song, reflect the interplay of tenderness and tension, using distorted and reshaped musical elements to evoke the film's unsettling narrative. In addition to the score, Together features a curated selection of licensed songs that enhance its thematic depth. The inclusion of the Spice Girls' To Become One is particularly poignant, serving as the backdrop for the climactic scene where Tim and Millie embrace their fusion while slow dancing. Other tracks, such as Another One by Golden Suits and Happy Together by the Turtles, reinforce the film's exploration of love and unity, albeit with an ironic twist given the horrific context. Wilczek's collaboration with Alex Selechnik on several tracks added a layer of experimental sound design, further aligning the music with the film's body horror elements. Released theatrical Together premiered in the midnight section of the 2025 Sundance Film Festival on January 26, 2025. Where it generated significant buzz among critics and distributors. The film's unique blend of body horror and relationship drama, coupled with the star power of Franco and Brie, attracted attention from major companies, including A24, Neon, Apple TV+, Focus Features, Searchlight Pictures, Mubi, and Amazon MGM Studios. Neon ultimately secured worldwide distribution rights for $17 million, marking the first major sale of the 2025 Sundance Film Festival. This acquisition underscored the film's commercial potential, particularly within the horror genre, which has seen a resurgence in recent years. Following its Sundance premiere, Together screened at the Sydney Film Festival on June 4, 2025. As part of the official competition section, with additional screenings on June 7 and 8, the film's international premiere further amplified its reputation, with audiences responding to its bold visuals and emotional core. In the United States, Together was initially scheduled for a theatrical release on August 1, 2025. But Neon moved the date up to July 30 to capitalize on the summer horror audience. In Australia, Kismet Movies released the film on July 31, aligning with the US rollout to maximize global exposure. The theatrical release was strategically timed to compete alongside family-friendly films like The Bad Guys 2 and The Naked Gun, with projections estimating an opening weekend gross of $7.58 million in the US and Canada. The film exceeded expectations, debuting to $10.9 million and finishing sixth at the box office, a strong performance for a genre film with a limited budget. As of August 10, 2025, Together has grossed $17.1 million in the US and Canada and $1.2 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $18.4 million, surpassing its production budget and signaling a modest financial success. Home media. As of August 2025, Together has not yet been released on home media or streaming platforms. Given Neon's distribution strategy, the film is expected to become available on Hulu following its theatrical run. as neon films typically transition to this platform. No official announcement has been made regarding a specific home media release date, but based on industry trends, a digital release on platforms like Fandango at home is likely within 45–90 days of the theatrical debut, potentially in late September or October 2025. Physical media releases, such as Blu-ray and DVD, may follow by late 2025 or early 2026, possibly including special features like behind-the-scenes featurettes, commentary from Shanks, Franco, and Brie, and a focus on the practical effects. Reception. Box office. Together's box office performance reflects its appeal as a niche horror film with crossover potential due to its star-driven cast and festival buzz. The film's $10.9 million opening weekend in the US and Canada exceeded projections, driven by strong word of mouth and positive critical reception. Its sixth-place finish at the box office, while modest compared to blockbuster releases, demonstrates the viability of mid-budget horror films in a competitive summer market. The international gross of $1.2 million, while smaller, indicates a targeted release strategy, with Australia contributing significantly due to the film's local production and Kismet Movies distribution efforts. The film's total worldwide gross of $18.4 million as of August 10, 2025, covers its $17 million budget, suggesting a break-even point or slight profitability before marketing costs are factored in. The performance aligns with other successful Sundance horror acquisitions, such as Hereditary, 2018, and The Witch, 2015. Though on a smaller scale, the film's ability to attract audiences despite its R rating and graphic content underscores the enduring popularity of body horror and the draw of Franco and Brie's real-life chemistry. Critical response. Together has received widespread critical acclaim, with a 90% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes based on 183 reviews as of August 2025. The site's consensus praises the metatextual casting of Franco and Brie, noting that the film is as emotionally sticky as it is memorably gnarly. Metacritic's score of 75 out of 100, based on 36 critics, indicates generally favorable reviews, positioning together as a standout in the 2025 horror landscape. However, audience reactions, as measured by CinemaScore, were more mixed, with a C+ grade suggesting that the film's intense themes and graphic imagery may have polarized general viewers. Critics have lauded the film's ability to blend body horror with the poignant relationship drama. Barry Hertz of the Globe and Mail described it as exceptionally, wildly disgusting, while highlighting the fusion of Franco and Brie's personal and professional lives as a key strength. Brianna Ziegler of the AV Club awarded the film a B grade, emphasizing the profound depth of feeling generated by the leads, which elevates the film beyond its genre trappings. Amy Nicholson of the Los Angeles Times noted its comedic undertones, suggesting that the film's structure is deceptively light despite its heavy themes. However, not all reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Zachary Barnes of the Wall Street Journal criticized Together as less a fully conceived horror movie than a plotting relationship drama with some impressively disgusting effects superimposed on it, pointing to narrative inconsistencies and an over-reliance on effects over story. Other critiques, such as those from Deep Focus Review and High on Films, acknowledge structural flaws and derivative elements, with references to Cronenberg's The Fly, 1986, and Society, 1989, suggesting that Shank's homage to genre classics occasionally overshadows original storytelling. Social media sentiment, as reflected on X, was highly positive in the lead-up to the release, with posts from @Rotten Tomatoes, @Film Updates, and @Culture Crave highlighting the film's 99% Rotten Tomatoes score, later adjusted to 90%, and describing it as one of the best horror films of 2025. Audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes echoed this enthusiasm, with comments praising the pacing, chemistry, and originality, though some noted a slow start or discomfort with the graphic content. The film's festival run further bolstered its reputation, with nominations for festival favorite at SXSW and Best Film at the Sydney Film Festival. Its pending preview public at the Locarno Film Festival underscores its international appeal. Despite the plagiarism lawsuit, which has been a point of contention, Together has solidified its place as a provocative and memorable entry in the body horror genre, with its emotional resonance and practical effects earning praise as a promising debut for Shanks. Conclusion: Together, 2025, is a bold and ambitious debut from Michael Shanks, blending the visceral thrills of body horror with a deeply felt exploration of love and codependency. The film's production, marked by a tight shooting schedule and innovative practical effects, showcases the dedication of its cast and crew, particularly the real-life chemistry of Dave Franco and Alison Brie. Its release strategy, from a high-profile Sundance premiere to a successful theatrical run, demonstrates the enduring appeal of genre films with strong narratives. While critical reception has been largely positive, highlighting the film's emotional and visual impact, some critiques point to narrative inconsistencies and derivative elements. As Together prepares for its home media release, its legacy as a thought-provoking horror film is secure, offering audiences a unique blend of romance, terror, and grotesque spectacle. Review. 1. The bodily mutations in the substance left you wanting more? Well, has Australian writer-director Michael Shanks got a movie for you, with more bone-crunching contortions, sticky goop and subcutaneous disturbance than you could dream of. Not to mention supernatural cult craziness. Dave Franco and Alison Brie are terrific, playing a codependent couple going through a troubled patch while moving to a small town where the woods hide ghastly secrets. When Brie's schoolteacher Millie early on suggests in exasperation that maybe it would be better to split up now rather than later when it's more painful, she has no idea how prophetic those words will be. It's hard to say much about the freaky blast of body horror romance that is Together without wading into spoiler territory, but a syrupy Spice Girls hit from 1996 provides clues, as does a prologue in which searchers comb the lush forest of regional Victoria, Australia, a bit distractingly recognizable in the role of the Pacific Northwest for two missing hikers. A pair of sniffer dogs venture down into a cavernous pit where some kind of insidious entity seems to be watching them from below as they lap up water from an underground pool. When they re-emerge, the pooches start exhibiting unsettling behavior, standing stock still facing each other with eyes locked together. They get even closer that night, when their owner finds them snarling, with their bloodied faces fused together like some kind of two-headed beast. Given that Together is soon established as being about a couple of trying to repair and strengthen their bond, that image doesn't bode well. The creepiness of the pre-title sequence dissipates in some sluggish dysfunctional relationship setup, as Millie prepares to leave the city for a hopefully more fulfilling teaching position at a small school in the sticks. While her struggling musician partner Tim Franco has grown more distant lately, she puts him on the spot by proposing at their going-away party. His hesitation before saying yes embarrasses her and creates more tension, suggesting that he's not so keen on the move. But he finds a space for himself when Millie's brother Luke, Jack Kenny, invites Tim to join his band on tour as guitarist. Since Millie needs the car for work and Tim can't drive, that will involve taking the train in and out of the city, as a plan to stop Tim from feeling like a useless appendage attached to his more career-oriented other half. It seems worth a try, except that Tim, whose nightmares reveal trauma in his past, doesn't get that far. They move into a spacious house in the cozy town, and we immediately get a queasy Chekhov's gun signal when Tim unpacks an electric saw that belonged to his father, telling Millie, "Don't let me use this." Millie is welcomed at the school, perhaps a bit too eagerly, by fellow teacher Brie Damon Herriman, who tells her about the beautiful woodlands and great hiking trails in the area. He neglects to mention the couple that went missing and have not been found, or the hippie religious sect chapel that collapsed into the forest ground. Even if you can see what's coming next in the more predictable stretch of the movie, the mood remains ominous as Millie and Tim follow a trail marked by ornate brass bells. While trying to find shelter during a torrential rainstorm, They end up falling through ground cover into the dreaded pit. And since they're low on bottled water, Tim drinks from the pool, telling Millie the water tastes fine. Bad move. The rain keeps them stuck there overnight, and they wake up to find the outer sides of their legs glued together by some kind of gooey webbing, strong enough to make separation painful. At that point, director Shanks is in his devilishly playful element, while Brie and Franco throw themselves full force into a scenario that keeps getting weirder, not least when Tim finally breaks the sexual drought between them in a school restroom, gluing them together in an intimate way that prompted the packed Sundance audience to scream with laughter and shuddering recoil. Men, you will clutch your genitals. In a visceral earlier scene, we get a hint of the magnetic pull between them as Millie drives to work while Tim finds himself being violently slammed around the shower stall at home by an invisible force. A local doctor, Aljanabella, prescribes diazepam, diagnosing the problem as an anxiety-induced seizure. Things just keep getting stickier from then on, and it becomes clear that unctuous Jamie knows more than he's letting on. Herriman keeps the maniacal menace just below the surface, at least for now. While waiting for the train into the city, Tim's popping, twitching muscles turn him into a virtual zombie, uncontrollably drawn toward Millie. He tries to explain it later, saying, "It's like my brain and my body aren't talking." Shanks gets more and more inventive with the gruesome set pieces as any kind of contact between Tim and Millie turns adhesive, and every effort to keep a safe distance transforms them into puppets, dragged together across the floor and prone to self-harm when separated. Real-life couple Brie and Franco bring great gusto and personal investment to the hair-raising, or at one point, eating, Cronenbergian ordeal they find themselves stuck in, which fortifies the underlying themes of codependency, commitment phobia and the fear of losing oneself in a relationship, intensifying when a couple's existence is more isolated. To what extent is it healthy for loving partners to imprint themselves on each other? But Shanks never lets the relationship drama intrude too much on the demented pleasures of the stretchy flesh, mining humor throughout from such things as social media banality, gay weddings, the uses of muscle relaxants against occult forces and, of course, that electric saw. It's refreshing to see a horror movie that relies less on shock tactics than good old-fashioned dread and revulsion. The movie's final escalation slaps on the prosthetic disfigurements to hilarious gross-out effect, almost making you wonder if the memur might be somewhere inside all the writhing elasticized skin. For the record, Together was in the works before the substance premiered. It's a nice touch that amid all the shock and awe about their physical transformations, Millie and Tim find the means to reaffirm their mutual commitment, which yields an uproarious and deftly executed sight gag in the closing shot. Shanks could stand to develop more finesse, and better writing, in the emotional drama. But even if he's killing time in his first feature before letting loose a heap of corporeal mayhem, Together marks him as a talent to watch. It's an ideal midnight date movie for the non-squeamish. Review. To a couple's move to the countryside triggers a supernatural incident that drastically alters their relationship, existence, and physical form. Together, the psychological and body horror film from writer-director Michael Shanks blends relationship drama with creeping dread and visceral transformation in ways that feel both fresh and unsettling. Starring real-life couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie, the film starts with the deceptively simple setup of a couple relocating to the countryside. What follows is an increasingly strange and airy spiral into supernatural territory, where the boundaries between love, identity, and physical self begin to blur. It's intimate and bizarre in equal measure, offering an experience that feels deeply personal even as it veers into the grotesque. What sets Together apart is its ability to tape into something raw beneath its horror, namely the codependency and loss of self that can grow within a long-term relationship. Shanks uses the supernatural as both a literal and metaphorical force, pushing Tim and Millie to confront the idea that they may be too entwined for their own good. The scares come in multiple forms, from effective jump scares to moments of slow-burning tension that quietly rattle the viewer. It's not horror by the numbers, and that unpredictability gives the film its edge. Franco and Brie are completely convincing as a couple unraveling under the weight of something they can't quite explain. Their natural chemistry helps ground the film, especially as things get increasingly abstract and grotesque. It's also refreshing to see both actors tackle something this physically and emotionally transformative, especially in a genre they're not typically associated with. Damon Herriman adds an understated but effective presence in a supporting role. Meanwhile, the combination of practical effects and CGI gives the film a tactile, lived-in quality, with the body horror hitting just the right level of disturbing without going overboard. Love and identity collide in a way that's as haunting as it is intimate. As the film builds toward its finale, it becomes more fragmented and interpretive. The third act might leave some audiences scratching their heads, but it doesn't feel out of place given the film's themes of entanglement and the erosion of personal boundaries. The ending is ambiguous, yes, but that ambiguity feels intentionally less about delivering clear resolution and more about inviting viewers to sit with the discomfort of not knowing where the self ends and the relationship begins. In the end, Together is a strange, intimate, and effective horror film that lingers. It's creepy, unique, and anchored by strong performances that make the descent into madness feel earned. Whether you're drawn in by the body horror, the emotional unraveling, or just seeing two actors stretch into unexpected territory, it delivers. Review. 3 The bodily mutations in the substance left you wanting more? Well, has Australian writer-director Michael Shanks got a movie for you, with more bone-crunching contortions, sticky goop and subcutaneous disturbance than you could dream of. Not to mention supernatural cult craziness. Dave Franco and Alison Brie are terrific, playing a codependent couple going through a troubled patch while moving to a small town where the woods hide ghastly secrets. When Brie's schoolteacher Millie early on suggests in exasperation that maybe it would be better to split up now rather than later when it's more painful, she has no idea how prophetic those words will be. It's hard to say much about the freaky blast of body horror romance that is Together without wading into spoiler territory, but a syrupy Spice Girls hit from 1996 provides clues, as does a prologue in which searchers comb the lush forest of regional Victoria, Australia, a bit distractingly recognizable in the role of the Pacific Northwest for two missing hikers. A pair of sniffer dogs venture down into a cavernous pit where some kind of insidious entity seems to be watching them from below as they lap up water from an underground pool. When they re-emerge, the pooches start exhibiting unsettling behavior, standing stock still facing each other with eyes locked together. They get even closer that night, when their owner finds them snarling, with their bloodied faces fused together like some kind of two-headed beast. Given that Together is soon established as being about a couple of trying to repair and strengthen their bond, that image doesn't bode well. The creepiness of the pre-title sequence dissipates in some sluggish dysfunctional relationship setup, as Millie prepares to leave the city for a hopefully more fulfilling teaching position at a small school in the sticks. While her struggling musician partner Tim Franco has grown more distant lately, she puts him on the spot by proposing at their going-away party. His hesitation before saying yes embarrasses her and creates more tension, suggesting that he's not so keen on the move. But he finds a space for himself when Millie's brother Luke, Jack Kenny, invites Tim to join his band on tour as guitarist. Since Millie needs the car for work and Tim can't drive, that will involve taking the train in and out of the city, as a plan to stop Tim from feeling like a useless appendage attached to his more career-oriented other half. It seems worth a try, except that Tim, whose nightmares reveal trauma in his past, doesn't get that far. They move into a spacious house in the cozy town, and we immediately get a queasy Chekhov's gun signal when Tim unpacks an electric saw that belonged to his father, telling Millie, "Don't let me use this." Millie is welcomed at the school, perhaps a bit too eagerly, by fellow teacher Jamie, Damon Herriman, who tells her about the beautiful woodlands and great hiking trails in the area. He neglects to mention the couple that went missing and have not been found, or the hippie religious sect chapel that collapsed into the forest ground. Even if you can see what's coming next in the more predictable stretch of the movie, the mood remains ominous as Millie and Tim follow a trail marked by ornate brass bells. While trying to find shelter during a torrential rainstorm, they end up falling through ground cover into the dreaded pit. And since they're low on bottled water, Tim drinks from the pool, telling Millie the water tastes fine. Bad move. The rain keeps them stuck there overnight, and they wake up to find the outer sides of their legs glued together by some kind of gooey webbing, strong enough to make separation painful. At that point, director Shanks is in his devilishly playful element, while Brie and Franco throw themselves full force into a scenario that keeps getting weirder, not least when Tim finally breaks the sexual drought between them in a school restroom, gluing them together in an intimate way that prompted the packed Sundance audience to scream with laughter and shuddering recoil. "Men, you will clutch your genitals." In a visceral earlier scene, we get a hint of the magnetic pull between them as Millie drives to work while Tim finds himself being violently slammed around the shower stall at home by an invisible force. A local doctor, Aljanabella, prescribes diazepam, diagnosing the problem as an anxiety-induced seizure. Things just keep getting stickier from then on, and it becomes clear that unctuous Jamie knows more than he's letting on. Herriman keeps the maniacal menace just below the surface, at least for now. While waiting for the train into the city, Tim's popping, twitching muscles turn him into a virtual zombie, uncontrollably drawn toward Millie. He tries to explain it later, saying, "It's like my brain and my body aren't talking." Shanks gets more and more inventive with the gruesome set pieces as any kind of contact between Tim and Millie turns adhesive, and every effort to keep a safe distance transforms them into puppets, dragged together across the floor and prone to self-harm when separated. Real-life couple Brie and Franco bring great gusto and personal investment to the hair-raising, or at one point, eating, Cronenbergian ordeal they find themselves stuck in, which fortifies the underlying themes of codependency, commitment phobia and the fear of losing oneself in a relationship, intensifying when a couple's existence is more isolated. To what extent is it healthy for loving partners to imprint themselves on each other? But Shanks never lets the relationship drama intrude too much on the demented pleasures of the stretchy flesh, mining humor throughout from such things as social media banality, gay weddings, the uses of muscle relaxants against occult forces and, of course, that electric saw. It's refreshing to see a horror movie that relies less on shock tactics than good old-fashioned dread and revulsion. The movie's final escalation slaps on the prosthetic disfigurements to hilarious gross-out effect, almost making you wonder if the memur might be somewhere inside all the writhing elasticized skin. For the record, Together was in the works before the substance premiered. It's a nice touch that amid all the shock and awe about their physical transformations, Millie and Tim find the means to reaffirm their mutual commitment, which yields an uproarious and deftly executed sight gag in the closing shot. Shanks could stand to develop more finesse, and better writing, in the emotional drama. But even if he's killing time in his first feature before letting loose a heap of corporeal mayhem, Together marks him as a talent to watch. It's an ideal midnight date movie for the non-squeamish. Review. For a couple on the edge of breaking up tried to survive lockdown together. The pandemic was hard for everyone. In recent memory, no world event has been felt or experienced so universally, and the effect on the film industry has been devastating. While other world-changing moments of the 21st century have found themselves on the big screen years after they took place, the pandemic again has differed, perhaps a result of its longevity. A small subgenre comprising films made during or about lockdown has been growing over this year, and even on TV, episodes from series as wide-ranging as South Park, Blackish, and Mythic Quest, Raven's Banquet have explored what their characters would have gone through in such a time. And yet, nothing has really come close to approximating the actuality of life over the course of lockdown, something that Together strives for above all else. A man and woman, never named and simply referred to as he and she, can't stand each other, despite being in a relationship and living together with their son. Then lockdown hits, and the three are forced to spend months in each other's company, stuck at home. With a nod to Alan Bennett's Talking Heads, Dennis Kelly's script deals mostly in exposition storytelling delivered directly to the camera. Thankfully, the material is highly witty and never too self-indulgent, though it certainly comes close, and is delivered by two fine actors in the capable hands of experienced director Stephen Daldry. Sharon Horgan plays the female character, a kind liberal who works with refugees, and on the other end of the spectrum, James McAvoy plays the male, a radical capitalist whose job title is somewhat unclear. They make about as much sense as a couple as Alien and Predator. As the insults fly and immediately cut deep in the opening sequence, it may already be clear how forced interaction in an enclosed space will develop the relationship of the two characters. Yet Kelly sidesteps predictability, using the extremity of the characters' differences, and their dislike for one another, to push past anything obvious or sanitized, and create hilarity whilst doing so. Jumping through the COVID timeline in the UK, Together hits one familiar sentiment after another, tackling feelings of grief and disillusionment, as well as examining the quiet reflective growth that the time afforded to many. The new normal is put under a microscope, with the film covering furlough, self-isolation, and even newly regulated funerals. Yes, it is didactic at times, but the film isn't so much aiming to teach a lesson as it is giving an accurate representation of what became the thought process common to the public majority as lockdown dragged on. As Horgan explains exponential growth to make a point, the character aims not just to educate but to understand herself, to try and put into works the totally blindsiding feeling that the world had irreversibly changed overnight. Overtly political, Together pulls its punches aimed at the government, cutting off McAvoy as he tries to verbalize his exasperation at the failure he has experienced. But the character arc is perhaps statement enough, making for a film that is decisive, informative, and brave enough to provide an unflinching look. The script is theatrical. It may have worked better on stage, and for those unimpressed by the relentless dialogue as found in films like Destination Wedding, there might not be much to excite or impress. Nevertheless, the film is monumental, certainly the best of the pandemic subgenre, and in its sentiments and emotions it is insightful and striking. Review. 5 Plot: a codependent couple, Alison Brie and Dave Franco, relocate to the countryside but discover their devotion to each other may be even more extreme than they thought when their bodies start to merge. Review: Together rocked the house here at Sundance, and did the same weeks later at SXSW, premiering as part of the midnight section. It's a rock-solid body horror romp that's further evidence of the genre's revival and makes an arresting debut for writer-director Michael Shanks, sporting the kind of electric energy too often missing from horror movies these days, with a propulsive pace and style that reminded me of the best of 80s horror flicks. This will likely be a hot-ticket item for any big distributor hitting Park City. Hopefully, anyone who buys it will give it a theatrical run, as it plays like gangbusters with an audience. In it, Tim, Dave Franco, and Millie, Alison Brie, are a couple at a crossroads. They've been together for a decade and still absolutely love each other, but as the old saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. They haven't been intimate in months. Tim still holds on to dreams of being a rock star, despite being 35 and largely unemployed. At the same time, Millie has a normal job as an elementary school teacher and pushes him to settle down into a life in the countryside away from the city. Not even being able to drive a car, Tim starts to feel like a hostage, while Millie starts to feel like she's married to an eternal adolescent. One day, while hiking, they fall into a cave and discover a hidden, subterranean chapel. When they make the mistake of drinking from an underground body of water, they start to find themselves inexplicably drawn to each other's bodies, and every time they try to separate, their skin doesn't want to let go. While Together could have been a quiet, one-location piece, Shanks's film has an impressive scale, with excellent production design and some truly nifty scares. Some of the best scenes depict Tim and Millie's bodies uncontrollably contorting as they're attracted to each other like magnets. They use extreme tactics to separate themselves, which had the audience hooting and hollering. The casting of real-life couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie is incredibly potent, as their chemistry is so strong. In another, more conventional horror film, the couple would start to hate or turn on each other as the horror gets more extreme. Instead, you never doubt Tim and Millie's deep love for each other. Anyone who's ever been in a long-term relationship will relate to the couple's squabbles, as even in the most loving relationship, the fear of losing your own identity in favor of coupledom is a real thing. Shanks's movie makes it literal, as their bodies start to become one. Gorehounds will not be disappointed by some of the more nauseating scares, with excellent practical effects and some well-placed jump scares peppered in. It's a strong pivot to horror for Franco and Brie, who previously dipped their toe into the genre with The Rental, which Franco directed. They produced this one and seem to have a real love for the genre. What's refreshing about Together, especially in comparison to more cerebral recent fare, is just how fun it is, which is the aspect that made this feel a little bit like an 80s film. It wants you to have a good time, and the audience I saw this will eat it up. Horror fans are going to have a blast. Review.6 writer and director Michael Stank's film Together signifies a lot of things, and so does the title. The lead pair is real-life married couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie acting together, and unlike most of the horror thrillers and psychological dramas, this time the central characters land in trouble together. The film takes its own time to come into its own and unleash its madness and mayhem. The start is rather restless and shaky, and we take time to get used to these people's motivations and conflicts. It's only after an awkward proposal scene at a party that things in Together come together. Clichés can be fun to watch if done correctly, and this horror thriller is a good example. A holiday to an unknown destination that involves the luscious jungles and a looming cave. It involves a fruitful night but a rather frightening morning when their legs are stuck together. The word may be used a lot more times by the time the review ends. This is the first glimpse of what the film promises. In any horror or thriller, the maiden jump scare or twist decides if the others in line will land or not. Fortunately, most of them do here. And just like the other monikers in this genre, this film also involves a dive into the past that answers inevitable questions about possessions. The performances neatly camouflage into the creepy camera work and cinematography by Jermaine Mcking, as opposed to being at odds with them. This is the second sign that the film is heading in the right direction. It also breaks away from the mold of letting women take charge of being possessed. It's Dave, who beautifully essays his demons as Tim, and experiences a relentless assault on his body. That's the target of evil. And later, Alison Brie as Millie joins him, rather literally, too. Stanks creates a palpable atmosphere of both creep and claustrophobia that one could gasp for breath just as desperately as the protagonists, and the visual effects only add a cherry on the cake. A ghastly and gratifying sexual encounter in a washroom stands out just because of how it culminates. The final twist works more than it doesn't purely because of the areas it veers into. This is a love story you wish weren't true. It's not operatic or obnoxious, but bold and badass, a rare instance when you wish these two maniacs were not together. After a point, they survive, not as smoothly as you'd expect. You leave smiling as much as shocked, and that's always a nice concoction that doesn't happen too often. Review.7 Hollywood's favorite couple just debuted the horror of the summer. Together, starring Alison Brie and Dave Franco, is body horror built for the big screen. Landing in theaters July 30th, Together premiered at Sundance in January 2025, sparked a fierce-bidding war, and was scooped up by Neon for about $17 million. Like most of Neon's recent releases, I Think Long Legs and Honora 8 Together is playing in theaters exclusively for the foreseeable future. When will Together stream? Neon's traditional model means you're not bumping it into your queue until at least 6 months post-release, possibly longer, depending on licensing and platform negotiations. So if you're champing at the bit between now and the new year, you'll be catching it in theaters. It's officially in theaters today, July 30th. Together's aforementioned elder, Long Legs, hit theaters in July 2024, and didn't stream until February 2025. The buzz in surrounding Together could shorten that window, if the powers that be want to capitalize on the ephemeral moment. What should I watch until then? If you're opposed to the movie theater experience, you're wrong, but you're lucky. You've found yourself in the height of the streaming empire, with access to more content than ever in cinematic history. So, if you're looking for a Together vibe, but are waiting to watch Together alone, here are some sister films to consider. David Cronenberg's The Fly, 1986. Stars Jeff Goldblum as a scientist whose teleportation machine merges his DNA with that of a housefly. His body begins to deteriorate, alongside his relationship with his journalist girlfriend, Gina Davis. Another 80s hit, Possession, 1981, traces a crumbling marriage to its most absurd conclusion, a grotesque transformation in one of cinema's most disturbing depictions of emotional collapse. That aforementioned Cronenberg is really the godfather of body horror and, essentially, walked so the team behind Together could run. His most disturbing and provocative work was Crash, 1996, which followed a group of people who derive sexual pleasure from car crashes and bodily trauma. Decades later, Julia Ducournau delivered a Cronenberg-inspired body horror for the new age. Titan, 2021, follows a woman whose traumatic head injury sparks a sexual attraction to cars. Unhinged Jake Gyllenhaal is a cinematic subgenre at this point in history. Enter Enemy, 2013, which stars the star as a reclusive professor who discovers an actor that looks exactly like him. As their lives intertwine, reality fractures, obsession deepens, and identity blurs into psychological horror. Same, but different. Swallow, 2019, is about a young woman who marries into wealth and develops a compulsive urge to swallow inedible objects like thumbtacks and batteries. It's a haunting meditation on the erasure of self within domestic relationships and patriarchal systems, a film where body horror is internalized and symbolic. If you're having trouble seeing the forest for the trees, all of these movies share themes of mental or emotional strife manifesting itself in the body. Together is the latest to sew together a relationship drama with that thread. As with any horror flick, we are in spoiler territory. Our recommendation: hit the theaters. Otherwise, we'll meet back here in 2026. Review. 8 Together is not just smart, it's sneaky smart. You go into it thinking you know what you're getting into, and feeling impatient or dismissive as a result, because the movie conspicuously makes choices that seem intended to announce which boxes it's about to check off. Then it keeps confounding you in a way that's understated rather than show-off until you have to accept it on its own terms. It's the perfect storytelling tactic for a movie about a surrogate mother and her patron, a divorced man 20 years her senior. The main characters don't fully appreciate each other until they quit trying to categorize their relationship and let it be whatever it's going to be, while trying not to obsess over what'll happen once the baby is born. The rope-a-dope strategy starts in the opening sequence. A middle-aged man named Matt, Ed Helms, interviews a young woman named Anna, Patty Harrison, in what initially seems like a speed date, then a job interview. It's both, in a way. The questions are cutesy yet invasive. What's the worst thing you've ever done? The solo piano score, by Alex Summers, has that yacht-cutting through clear water sound characteristic of hyperverbal indie film comedies about well-off suburbanites muddling through existential crises. The credits font is Windsor-Light condensed, used in all Woody Allen films since Annie Hall. Between the lead actors' age gap and their self-aware yet sometimes stumbling comic banter, it seems as if Together is a try-hard that's aiming to give us the pleasures of a mid-period Woody Allen film without having to factor in, Woody Allen. As it turns out, this is not the kind of film where the leads overcome social obstacles and live happily ever after as husband and wife. In fact, it turns out to be a rare film about two characters you've never seen in a movie. They initially seem cut from middling romantic comedy cloth. Writer, director Nicole Beckwith and her lead actors gesture in that direction by having Matt and Anna quickly disclose shared feelings of loneliness and aloneness, different concepts, and talk about their troubled pasts. Matt is the designer of a masochistic app called Loner that lets users browse profiles of other singles. They're not allowed to save profiles unless they favorite them, and they can only pick one to favorite. Matt's marriage collapsed for undisclosed reasons, basic incompatibility, it seems, but he decided to have a kid anyway, using his own sperm and a donated egg. He's acutely self-conscious about being a single, straight man in his predicament. Anna got pregnant in college, gave the baby up for adoption, and earned the double ire of her parents, who considered her a failure both for having an unplanned pregnancy and not keeping the kid. It seemed as if the only way they would be happy is if I was wildly unhappy, she tells Matt. What is this? Discount Charlie Kaufman. But the more time you spend with these two, the harder it is to categorize what kinds of characters they are, much less compare the film to others or predict what'll happen to the main couple. In fact, It feels wrong to call them a couple. They're more than friends, less than lovers. Well, not less than, because that phrase implies that a romantic relationship is greater than friendship. Then again, is this even a friendship? Anna asks that. She's right to wonder. Matt doesn't know how to respond. It's complicated. Money is involved. They've held hands, but not each other. They've shared secrets, but not a bed. Anna isn't attracted to Matt, and to the extent that Matt makes overtures in that direction, they seem obligatory, as if he's been conditioned to expect a heteronormative fantasy outcome, as academics might describe it. What drives these two? What are we looking at when we look at them? Anna and Matt's predicament is like that moment when you're working on a project late at night, bleary-eyed and easily distracted, and stare at a commonplace word like door for a long time and think, is that really how it's spelled? The script has a 3-trimester structure. In this first trimester, you wonder if Beckwith is incompetent, bad at conveying basic plot information, or just messing with your head. The characters keep ending up in situations that make you wonder if boundaries were even discussed, as when Maid is present in a room where Anna is being wounded by an obstetrics nurse, and brings Anna a gift of a human-sized teddy bear, the go-to impulse buy in unimaginative romantic comedies. By the second trimester, Matt and Anna seem to be getting along so well that you wonder if the film is going to have them fall in love and get married. Anyway, Matt is an unglamorous but decent man, the good catch in rom-coms who might end up with the female lead after a sexier but more chaotic and self-centered man broke her heart. Matt is constantly doing little favors for Anna and questions himself when he inadvertently upsets her. Anna is grateful for the compliments he gives her, as well as the way he rescues her from awkward situations. Boundaries are discussed in due course, as is the Woody Allen comedy and its cliches about the natures of men and women, and its obliviousness about age gaps. Some of the first trimester scenes feel, in retrospect, misjudged, or at least not thought out. There should be a way to get us to appreciate the awkwardness of characters not knowing how to behave without making us wonder if the filmmaker is clumsily imitating rom-com tropes. And a longish scene where Woody Allen's films are critiqued feels like a pointless detour into subtext as text. It's the worst thing in the movie by a wide margin because it's an organic and discursive via a withering critical monologue that should have been saved for the PR tour. Despite these and other missteps, Together is a sturdy film that's determined to avoid the obvious choice. Like Beckwith's feature debut, Stockholm, Pennsylvania, it invites inattentive viewers to put it down for being something it only pretended to be, on purpose, and only briefly. Harrison and Helms are a thoughtful duo. Each has a melancholy streak. Each seems determined to surprise the other and refuse to allow simplistic choices to pass unchallenged. Mutual respect comes through in their performances. There's a scene in a birthing class that might constitute the best acting either has done to date. The end of the tale is the climax that the trimester structure demands. By that point you might find yourself invested in the happiness of characters whose relationship is hard to sum up. Some of the most memorable sections of the film are montages where you watch a character go about their self-involved business without noticing the other's wounded feelings. The last shot reminded me of the closing images of The Graduate, Big Night, Solitary Man, and Private Life, in that it refuses to supply answers, instead leaving viewers with a single question: now what? Review. 9 It was with a degree of trepidation that I went into Together. It's a relationship dramedy about surviving the pandemic. It's an iffy proposition to make a movie about COVID-19 because not many people want to watch a drama on the subject that gets too heavy, but going too light is even worse. In Together, James McAvoy, Atonement, X-Men, First Class, and Sharon Horgan, Military Wives, This Way Up, play an unhappy couple living together in the UK just as the pandemic hits. They have been on the verge of going their separate ways when the lockdown makes it impossible. The characters are never given names, identified in the credits only as he and she, though we do get to know the name of their son, Artie, Samuel Logan. The movie isn't about Artie, however it's about them. He is a cynical, angry conservative businessman, and she is a bleeding heart liberal who works with refugees. The spark that they once felt for each other is, at best, merely an ember at this point. But they are forced to make the best of this situation together, as the whirlwind experience of 2020-21 has a profound effect on them both and on their relationship with each other. Director Stephen Daldry, Billy Elliot, The Hours, The Reader, takes a minimalist approach to this intimate story, favoring long takes and letting the actors and the script by Dennis Kelly, Utopia, do the heavy lifting. Daldry does a laudable job of taking what is written like a two-person play and making it feel more like a movie than it could have done. Thankfully, his COVID movie is much more successful than his laughably manipulative 9/11 movie, extremely loud, incredibly close. McAvoy and Horgan break the fourth wall to the point where they smash it down completely, with the characters speaking directly to the camera throughout, in monologues and in dialogue. It's an approach that could have easily fallen completely flat, but the script is funny, heartbreaking and searingly insightful, bolstered by spectacular performances. I've been a McAvoy fan for a very long time, but it's been a while since he's done a film that really did anything for me. In Together, McAvoy gives a mesmerizing performance that is a masterclass in the moment acting. Quite frankly, while it won't get half the attention that his showy roles in Split and Glass did, anyone who doesn't see that his work here is superior has a pretty superficial understanding of acting. There's a truth and vulnerability to this performance that blew me away, and Horgan is every bit as good. Together has some hilarious comic moments, but it also has some serious depth, covers some harsh realities of this point in time that we haven't seen on film before, much, and some pointed and even angry criticism of how the British government has handled things. By the time the film was over, I felt a lot of love for both of the lead characters. That being said, the biggest flaw is also the element that demonstrates the level on which Together would have worked better on stage. That is, Artie is seen but never heard, merely a presence in the background. The lack of interaction with him bothered me. If Together had been a play, Artie would have only been referenced, and the fact that he's always off playing by himself wouldn't have left me with any feeling that he wasn't given enough attention. On film, however, it was constantly on the verge of alienating me with that feeling. Together is an imperfect film that isn't going to work for all audiences, but it's a compelling and sincere effort that I found to be both upsetting and cathartic. It's a performance piece that caught me by surprise and moved me a great deal. While it won't find an audience in theaters, it will be all the more powerful on video during the inevitable near lockdown that is headed our way if we can't start working together to end this nightmare. A. Patrick Gibbs. Review. 10. Here is a movie not embarrassed by strong, basic emotions like love and ambition. It has the courage to face them head-on, instead of edging up to them through irony, or disarming them with sitcom comedy. Chen Kji's Together is a movie with the nerve to end with melodramatic sentiment up and get away with it, because it means it. Expect lots of damn pies in the audience. The movie tells the story of Liu Ziashan, Tang Yun, a 13-year-old violin prodigy who lives in a provincial town with his father, Liu Cheng, Liu Qi. His father is a cook who decides Ziashan must advance his studies in Beijing, and so he takes them both there, with his meager savings hidden in his red peasant's hat, because he is so naive, so direct, so obviously exactly who he is, and because his son really is talented. The uncultured father is able to persuade a violin teacher named Zhang, Wang Ziwan, to take the boy as a student. Zhang is almost a recluse, a once talented pianist whose heart was broken by a girl, and who has retreated to a shabby apartment with his cats and his dirty laundry. As he tutors the boy tutors him, lecturing him on his hygiene and self-pity. The two become close friends, but one day Ziashan's father decides it is time for him to move up to a better teacher, the famous Yu Shifeng, played by director Chen Kaige himself. Zhang is a realist and agrees with this change, and the leave-taking between the two friends is handled in a touching, unexpected way. The big city is exciting for young Ziashan, who meets a woman in her 20s named Lily, played by Chen Hong, who in real life is the director's wife. She tips him for carrying her bag, hires him to play at a party, takes him shopping, and befriends him. She is also involved in a complex and traumatic episode when the boy sells his precious violin. All that is left from his mother, he is told, to buy her a coat. The young violinist's goal is to be chosen by Professor Yu for an important international contest. A girl named Lin Yu, another of Yu's students, is his rival, and both the professor and the girl tell him secrets that force him to re-evaluate his world and values. Torn between recognition and his love for his father, he finds a solution in the last scene that is physically impossible, unless the symphony orchestra is playing very, very loudly, but is the perfect outcome for the story, an emotional high point that's dramatic and heartwarming. The movie is also a story about the old and new China. Set in old and new Beijing, Professor Zhang lives in a crowded quarter of dwellings that lean cozily on each other, its streets filled with bicycles and gossip. People know each other. Professor Yu lives in a sterile modern building with Western furnishings. When he suggests that Xia Shan leave his father and live with him, he is essentially asking him to leave an older, more human China, and enter a modern world of ambition, success and media marketing. Lily, the pretty neighbor, is caught between those two worlds. She is clearly a good person, yet not above using her beauty to support herself. In this PG-rated movie, however, it's a little hard to figure out exactly what her profession is. I did some web research and discovered she is the proverbial hooker with the heart of gold, New York Post, a gold-digging glamour puss, Village Voice, or a good-hearted neighbor, who offers some of the film's most tender moments. U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Morality is in the eye of the beholder. For Chen Kaige, Together is a comeback after The Extravagant Temptress Moon, 1996, and The Emperor and the Assassin, 1999. His earlier credits include Yellow Earth, a touching story of a soldier collecting rural folk songs, and the masterful Farewell My Concubine, about two members of the Peking Opera who survived through a time of political tumult. Together is powerful in an old-fashioned, big studio kind of way. Hollywood once had the knack of making audience pleasers like this, before it got too clever for its own good. Strange, but moviegoers who avoid art films and are simply in the mood for a good entertaining movie would be better off with this Chinese film than with most of the multiplex specials. Review.11v been a fan of Ed Helms since his early days on The Office, and I predicted that he'd be a movie star pretty quickly. Unfortunately, literally the only film he's been in that I've liked is The Lorax, and while I thought he was fantastic in it, since then he's reached a point where his mere presence in a movie screams out abandon all hope. Ye who enter here. It's not that he's become a lesser actor, he's just been stuck in a really lousy niche. I entered into Together with trepidation, but with my fingers crossed and my eyes closed, although I did open them once the movie started playing. Together opens by introducing Anna, Patty Harrison, a simple favor, search party, a 26-year-old woman who is interviewing to be a gestational surrogate for a single, middle-aged app designer named Matt Helms. She enters the job with the expectation of only a transactional bit of good karma and a payday that will allow her to finish her college degree. But as Matt's unbridled enthusiasm for impending parenthood leads him to persistently insert himself into her life and invite her into his, the initially annoyed Anna finds herself reluctantly charmed. As the two work toward a successful pregnancy for everyone involved, these self-described loners gradually open up to each other, give in to the intimacy of their admittedly finite shared experience, and forge a deep, hard-to-define friendship. Writer-director Nicole Beckwith, Stockholm, Pennsylvania, resists all of the obvious and conventional directions this story could have gone in, and as a result, Together is a fresh, sophisticated and surprisingly sweet film about two people going it alone but doing it with someone by their side every step of the way, and it's a daringly original, platonic rom-com that is both joyful and melancholy. The script is funny and gentle, and it lets us laugh with Matt and Anna, never at them. Helms and Harrison have great chemistry, and Beckwith makes the audience fall in love with the characters in a way that is low-key and natural, getting your mind and your emotions building as it plays out but never trying to artificially manipulate your feelings. Matt's sensitivity and caring for Anna is charming and incredibly endearing, and the more we get to know Anna the more we respect her but also realize just how much younger she is, and Beckwith and Harrison give the audience the highly unusual treat of leaving us to come to our own conclusions about what she is feeling. If there's one element that I felt frustrating unoriginal to me, It was Julio Torres' sassy gay co-worker character, who clashes with rest of the movie by being a stock character who is never allowed to break out of the two-dimensional realm. It's a solid enough performance with a few amusing lines, but its element of pandering to stereotypes to tropes in a film that so consistently avoids them everywhere else. Still, Together is a breath of fresh air that stands out as something special, and invites the audience to become part of a unique and very memorable character relationship. A. Patrick Gibbs. Review. 12. Dave Franco and Alison Brie share a spooky campfire tale before living out their own horror story in the final trailer for Together. The real-life spouses star in the cosmic body horror film, opening in theaters on July 30th. From Neon. Years into their relationship, Tim and Millie find themselves at a crossroads as they move to the country, abandoning all that is familiar in their lives except each other. With tensions already flaring, a nightmarish encounter with a mysterious, unnatural foe threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. Damon Herriman, Sonny S. Walia, Jack Kenny, and Mia Morrissey round out the cast. Writer-director Michael Shanks makes his feature debut on the movie, which is currently rated 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Megan Navarro wrote in her review out of Sundance, "Its unique blend of awkward romantic dramedy and cosmic body horror yields no shortage of crowd-pleasing moments and horror freakouts that left the rowdy Sundance audience laughing and screaming in equal measure." Review. 13 It's starting to look like a great year if you are into horror movies, from Ryan Coogler's classic Sinners, to the movie saga that dramatized a whole generation like Final Destination, Bloodline, set to release this year. One addition to the list of horror movies coming out this year is the Michael Shanks-directed movie Together. Stepping aside from the usual jump scares and ghosts with horrifying faces, Together does something different. It takes a more supernatural approach, with evil forces making physical changes to their bodies. Looking at the trailer, it might not seem like the loudest or the flashiest horror movie, but it sure seems like the most intriguing one. The premise is thrilling for sure, but it's the emotional storytelling and the sense of unease created through the setting's atmosphere that you are strangely immersed in their eerie situations. It's almost as if you are living in the world, seeing their problems unfold in front of the couple that just moved to the countryside. The movie is set to release later this year, and the thrilling trailer is already turning heads. So, let's dive into the chilling countryside to get spooked when Together hits the screens, and everything else you need to know about it. The movie was one of the most talked about movies after it premiered at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival. It has already started seeing positive reviews from the few viewers who got the first look at it. The movie revolves around a couple called Millie and Tim, who are actually real-life couples, Alison Brie and Dave Franco. Many who saw the trailer could see the natural flowing chemistry between the couple, and this was possible to achieve with an actual couple acting in the movie. Alison Brie is also working on a live-action Master of the Universe movie, playing the villain Evelyn. The couple has worked together in other movies: The Little Hours, The Disaster Artist, The Rental, and Somebody I Used to Know. The Rental was another horror drama, which means the movie Together is not their first attempt at a horror setting. Apart from the couple, some other notable characters are Damon Herriman, the star of the FX TV show Mr. In-Between, and Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. While the official roles and other side characters and actors are not revealed, expect these three legends to have you on a chokehold. When is the movie Together releasing? The horror drama is set to release on July 30th. In the US, that is the official release in the States, and there has been no official release date for the UK. Surprisingly, the release date doesn't come on Friday, which has become the standard for releasing new art or entertainment. It also seems like an odd time to place your movie, as several blockbusters are set to release the same month. Movies like Superman, Jurassic World, Rebirth, Mona, and the much-awaited F1 movie will release in July 2025. And to go ahead and place the release of Together at the end of the month might end up with a high chance of the movie getting overshadowed. Together follows Millie and Tim, a couple whose relationship is clearly going through a bumpy ride. To have a fresh attempt at the relationship, The couple moves to a new place in the woods. They move to a quiet Australian town for Millie's new teaching job. But their new beginning takes a strange and disturbing turn when Tim starts suffering from weird physical symptoms. There is this strange pull toward Millie, as if by some unseen magnetic force, and his body seems to act on its own. In one of the scenes from the trailer, you can see that while Millie drives to work, Tim is violently slammed around their shower stall by an invisible force, as if his body can sense her moving in different directions. It is clear the movie is following supernatural elements, and if that doesn't make you skin crawl, then here is some more info that is sure to make you feel eerie. After a violent, almost surreal downpour, Millie and Tim fall into a pit, and that's when things get truly twisted. They wake up covered in sticky, glue-like webbing that fuses their bodies together, and the more they try to pull each other apart, the more it hurts, binding them emotionally and physically. While it is deeply scary and emotional, the Australian director has also added some elements of romance and comedy, making together an unsettling yet oddly intriguing story. With Alison Brie and Dave Franco playing the tangled couple, the film explores intimacy, discomfort, and what it really means to be stuck together in every sense of the word. It would be interesting to see the reaction once the movie hits the theaters. If the plot and cast has not done the job to make you interested in the movie, then these few fun facts might. While the movie's production and quality seem top-notch, Together marks the feature film directorial debut of Australian filmmaker Michael Shanks. Despite his lack of experience, he has managed to make everyone interested and turn their heads. The film premiered in the midnight section of the 2025 Sundance Film Festival, after which it gained immense positive reviews. Another reason the movie got so many positive reviews and attention was because of how good the movie looked, and this was because Together uses real, practical effects, not just CGI, to show the creepy and uncomfortable changes happening to the characters' bodies. This makes the horror feel more real and intense for the audience. Rahul is an entertainment writer at Fandom Wire who has already made his mark covering some of the most talked about TV shows around, especially the gems coming out of Apple TV+. In under a year, he's tackled everything from breaking news to evergreen features and listicles that keep readers clicking. Before swapping the racetrack for the red carpet, Rahul was deep in the world of sports journalism, covering the high-speed drama of Formula One. That same adrenaline now fuels his love for motorsport-themed movies and series. If there's an engine revving on screen, chances are he's written about it. When he's not busy ranking the best horror flicks or hunting down the next great movie trilogy, Rahul's geeking out over Quentin Tarantino's razor-sharp dialogue or Wes Anderson's perfectly framed shots. Those two directors may have sparked his obsession with cinema, but they also opened the door to exploring filmmakers of every style, and he's been on that deep dive ever since. Review. 14 A couple's move to the countryside triggers a supernatural incident that drastically alters their relationship, existence, and physical form. Together, the psychological and body horror film from writer-director Michael Shanks, blends relationship drama with creeping dread and visceral transformation in ways that feel both fresh and unsettling. Starring real-life couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie, the film starts with the deceptively simple setup of a couple relocating to the countryside. What follows is an increasingly strange and airy spiral into supernatural territory, where the boundaries between love, identity, and physical self begin to blur. It's intimate and bizarre in equal measure, offering an experience that feels deeply personal even as it veers into the grotesque. What sets Together apart is its ability to tape into something raw beneath its horror, namely the codependency and loss of self that can grow within a long-term relationship. Shanks uses the supernatural as both the literal and metaphorical force, pushing Tim and Millie to confront the idea that they may be too entwined for their own good. The scares come in multiple forms, from effective jump scares to moments of slow-burning tension that quietly rattle the viewer. It's not horror by the numbers, and that unpredictability gives the film its edge. Franco and Brie are completely convincing as a couple unraveling under the weight of something they can't quite explain. Their natural chemistry helps ground the film, especially as things get increasingly abstract and grotesque. It's also refreshing to see both actors tackle something this physically and emotionally transformative, especially in a genre they're not typically associated with. Damon Herriman adds an understated but effective presence in a supporting role. Meanwhile, the combination of practical effects and CGI gives the film a tactile, lived-in quality, with the body horror hitting just the right level of disturbing without going overboard. Love and identity collide in a way that's as haunting as it is intimate. As the film builds toward its finale, it becomes more fragmented and interpretive. The third act might leave some audiences scratching their heads, but it doesn't feel out of place given the film's themes of entanglement and the erosion of personal boundaries. The ending is ambiguous, yes, but that ambiguity feels intentionally less about delivering clear resolution and more about inviting viewers to sit with the discomfort of not knowing where the self ends and the relationship begins. In the end, Together is a strange, intimate, and effective horror film that lingers. It's creepy, unique, and anchored by strong performances that make the descent into madness feel earned. Whether you're drawn in by the body horror, the emotional unraveling, or just seeing two actors stretch into unexpected territory, it delivers. Review. 15 Beloved Hollywood couple Alison Brie and Dave Franco have teamed up on the big screen a handful of times already, but their new collaboration tests their coupledom in new and horrific ways, and they wouldn't want it any other way. A lot of this film requires close proximity from its two leads to a greater extent than anything I have done before, explains Brie of the film Together, which will have a world premiere this weekend as part of the Sundance Film Festival. I don't know how you could make this movie without a real-life couple because of some of the situations we found ourselves in. To say much more would spoil the experience for festival audiences that have a chance to screen the film as part of Sundance's midnight section. So we'll leave the honors with the official festival description. With a move to the countryside already testing the limits of a couple's relationship, a supernatural encounter begins an extreme transformation of their love, their lives and their flesh. It's the work of Melbourne-based filmmaker Michael Shanks, who makes his feature directorial debut on the genre film after turning heads with a well-received short film, Rebooted, and a blacklist screenplay, Hotel 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 Hotel. In a candid, careful and compliment-filled joint interview over Zoom, all three talked with intention in order to avoid spoilers. Brie, Franco and Shanks open up on how they came to collaborate on Together, the challenges of a quick and physically demanding shoot down under, and why codependency can actually be so scary. How are you feeling on the eve of your world premiere? Franco. Shanks: I'm most curious how you're feeling. A broken bar. Shanks: I have the sort of disposition where things that are coming up in the future don't become real to me until I'm just on the cusp of it. Now that I'm on the cusp of this, I've stopped sleeping and I'm starting to stress. But that's good because it means that I can still actually feel excitement. I'm really looking forward to it. And it's been lovely from my end of things. I live very far away from the industry and none of my friends work in the industry, so the fact that this is happening has sent a buzz through my friend group. Everyone's excited, so it's really positive and really nice. Michael: how are you with the cold? I hope you've packed some warm clothes. Shanks: I packed as much warm clothing as possible, but I'm not sure I can fully prepare for it because of where I live. I'm just completely unprepared for what winter in Utah is like. Franco: all of our producers seem most concerned about what Shanks is going to wear to the festival. Good producers always think of everything, and I'll include you on that list since you both produced in addition to starring in this. Michael: let's turn our attention toward Alison and Dave. In your director's statement, you said you'll forever be grateful to them for taking a chance on your first feature. You referred to them as the glue that holds this film together, which can be taken a couple of different ways after seeing the film. How did you get them to glue themselves to this? Shanks: I had written this other script, Hotel 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 Hotel, which made the 2021 blacklist, that got some eyes on it in the industry. One of my reps, at WME, suggested I meet with Dave because he works with him as well. We met over Zoom and talked about other things. I am a big fan of The Rental, which Dave directed, and that Alison worked on as well. I knew that he likes horror and so do I, so we talked a lot about horror. I mentioned that I had written this other horror script and suggested that maybe he look at it and tell me what he thought. Obviously, I was secretly hoping that he'd read it and be like, damn, I want to do this. The next day, I got a call from my agent saying, hey, Dave wants to do the film. I'm like, what are you talking about? Then he said, his wife Alison has read it and she likes it, too. How would you feel about both of them coming on board? I had to bite my fist and say, yeah, I'll think about it. That sounds good. I then just skipped away off into the day. It was awesome, just amazing. When I first met with Dave, I could see that somebody else was in the house and I wondered if that was Alison. We ended up jumping on a Zoom to have a chat and feel out if we could get on. From there, it felt like it all happened so quickly. Franco, I had seen a short film that Shanks wrote and directed called Rebooted, one of the most beautifully made short films I've ever seen. Going into this general meeting, I was already a fan. When he sent me the script for it together, which had a lot of visual effects, elements that needed to be pulled off in such a difficult and nuanced way, I had faith in him because of how competently he made that short film. I remember reading the together script and immediately turning to Alison to say, I think we should act in this one together, because the characters had been together for over a decade. I figured that our real-life relationship could lend itself well to that dynamic. Brie, Dave and I are pretty selective about the things that we want to act in together. Obviously, we love it and we're always trying to work together on projects, but there are always factors to consider. Will it be too distracting? Does it just get annoying after a certain point? Franco, we don't want to burn people out. Brie is any good producer. Dave sent me the whole package by forwarding me the script and the short film, Rebooted, and, of course, it had been me lurking in the shadows during Shanks' Zoom with Dave. So I basically audited that meeting and already heard what Shanks was like. I also got to hear them talking about horror and other things. When I read the script, I was just so taken by it. It was so clever how the set pieces tied into the story. Nothing felt arbitrary. To Dave's point, this is a film that I felt would be aided by the fact that people know we've been in a relationship for a long time. Not just that, but on a practical level. We have been in a relationship for a long time. Both of us have done intimate scenes with other actors, of course, but without giving too much away. A lot of this film requires close proximity from its two leads to a greater extent than anything I have done before. I think we pretty much finished every day of shooting and said to one another, I don't know how you could make this movie without a real-life couple because of some of the situations we found ourselves in. Michael, there's a line from your director's statement that really jumped out. This is a film about the potential horror of sharing a life with someone. Dave, you said something similar while promoting the rental in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, so I assume you bonded over that same theme. Michael, can you share a bit more about what you mean by that? Shanks, absolutely. I would like to clarify that I love being in a relationship. I love being in love. But as you're going through that first long-term relationship in your life, I think you sometimes do reach that crossroads where you stop and think to yourself that you're really sharing a life with someone. Once you move in together, you breathe the same air, eat the same meals, have the same friends. This is something I confronted a few years back. And I also come from a tight-knit group of friends in which everyone is in a long-term monogamous relationship, oftentimes the same one since high school. Sometimes there can be a great fear that people are more used to each other than they are still in love. I'm happy to report I'm very much still in love, but there came a point when I had to really commit to the fact that I was sharing a life. In my own experience, my partner Louie and I have been together since we were 18. I've never been an adult without her in my life. She's never been an adult without me in hers. At a certain point, you wonder to yourself, do I even know who I'm without her? That's kind of a scary thought. That was really the jumping off point or my way into this premise. Dave, can you continue that thought? Franco, whenever I'm telling friends about this film, I start by saying it's about a codependent couple and they kind of roll their eyes and say something like, oh, something difficult for you to understand. Laughs. The movie explores codependency, and it's something that we don't necessarily think is a good or bad thing. There are levels to it. Because we are married, and we work together constantly, I think we definitely could be defined as codependent, but we try to maintain a healthy relationship. Also, because of the fact that certain jobs take us away from each other for long periods of time, we are forced to also be more independent. Brie, I was going to say that, too. That is probably part of the reason why we are so discerning when thinking about projects to work on together. We've fallen into a nice pattern of working together and then working apart. As Dave was saying, most of the time our job lends itself towards independence. We spend months apart, sometimes in different countries if we happen to be shooting different jobs at the same time. There's no way to visit one another because of schedules. I think we are good in the codependency department. This movie explores the darker side of codependency. It is a universal theme in terms of maintaining independence in a relationship. And like any good genre film, we are going to push the idea to its wildest conclusion. Like Shanks was saying, we're exploring the idea of what happens if a couple is in a rut, or they get to a point when they sort of can't remember if they love each other still or what they loved about one another in the first place. Then it becomes more about the fear of the unknown, of not wanting to leave a relationship out of fear. That's what we're exploiting in this movie. Because of how intense the relationship is in the film, we went into the whole experience knowing that it would all end in divorce for us, or we would be more codependent than ever. Luckily, it's the latter. You're sitting here together, so that's a great thing. Let's talk about the shoot. How many days? Where did you shoot? How did it go? Shanks, we shot down here in Melbourne, Australia. It was a quick shoot considering the ambition. It was about 21 days, but for my money at least, I had a blast. People have asked me if it was stressful, and of course it was in some ways, but coming from a kind of run-and-gun guerrilla filmmaking background, it was one of the least stressful jobs I've ever done. We were working with such high-level people both in front of and behind the camera. Whilst we might have had access to less money or less gear than other films of this ambition, I felt like a kid in a candy shop. I couldn't believe the access to people, equipment and production tools we had on our side. Every day felt like a dream. It was busy, but the vibe, I hope, was positive. There was no time to rest, but we were having fun throughout. It wasn't a shouty set, Brie, it was literally a mad dash. I remember we were sprinting back to our marks because we didn't want to waste any time. We had the most amazing crew that was willing to do that, as well as sprinting with gear so that we could milk every second of the day and get it all on camera. The spirit of that was really fulfilling. Review. 16 Alison Brie and Dave Franco have both carved out successful careers in Hollywood, with the powerhouse couple excelling across genres in television and film. Brie and Franco, who married in 2017, have also worked together many times, sharing the screen with indie projects like The Disaster Artist, Horse Girl, and The Little Hours. In 2023, the couple co-wrote their first movie together, Somebody That I Used to Know, with Brie in the lead role and Franco directing the rom-com. Brie first gained widespread recognition as Annie Edison in NBC's beloved sitcom Community, 2009–2015, where she played an ambitious overachiever with pure comedic timing. Around the same time, she voiced Diane Nguyen in BoJack Horseman, 2014–2020, one of Netflix's most critically acclaimed animated series. Franco's breakout roles came in cult comedy films like 21 Jump Street, 2012, and Numbers, 2014, where he played a hilarious and charismatic antagonist. He also starred in the Now You See Me franchise, 2013–2016, as a street magician turned thief. Together comes to theaters on August 1, 2025. The movie secures a wide release. Alison Brie and Dave Franco's latest project, Together, is coming to theaters this year. Premiering at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival, the film follows Tim, Franco, and Millie, Brie, a married couple who moved to the countryside in an attempt to repair their struggling relationship. However, their new home is not as peaceful as they hoped when they come across an unexpected guest. Michael Shanks, making his feature directorial debut, helms the project, with Brie and Franco serving as both stars and executive producers. Now, Neon has announced Together will hit theaters on August 1, 2025, following its critically acclaimed Sundance debut. With 17 reviews and counting, the Franco and Brie-led horror film has amassed a 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes as a twisted yet intimate approach to body horror with a hilariously heartfelt exploration of love and connection. Given the success of past horror films distributed by Neon such as Longlegs and Parasite, Together could be one of the biggest genre films of the year. Our take on Together's theatrical release, a horror movie that feels bold personal. Seeing Brie and Franco step deeper into the horror genre together is exciting, especially with Together already garnering critical acclaim. Their past projects have offered an enticing peek in their chemistry and creative synergy, but this film looks to be some of their best work yet. Its blend of unrelenting gore, supernatural entities, and relationship drama has all the makings of a standout genre film. If the festival buzz translates to mainstream success, Together could be one of 2025's most talked about horror films, cementing the couple as a creative duo capable of delivering truly bold, often unhinged storytelling. Review. 17 Ashley Williams' new Hallmark movie, Falling Together, didn't start as an homage to her mother, Linda, who died from dementia in 2016. It began with the failed apartment building-wide chili party she threw years ago. We moved to New York so that I could do the Jim Gaffigan show, and we bought his apartment on the Upper West Side, where I'd always wanted to live. I thought it'd be all these creative types who have families who are on Broadway, she recalls. But there was this strange energy even in the elevator. I just kept saying to my husband, Neil Dodson, who is an executive producer on the film alongside Williams, once these people get to know us, they're just going to love us. Finally, I decided I'm going to throw a big chili party. I put signs all over the building, in the elevators, everywhere. But only one neighbor showed up all night, she says, so I got to thinking, what if the one person that came was the handsome super in the building, but it turned out he was just coming to fix a broken pipe. The story's next challenge was figuring out how to bring the disparate tenants in the building together, and Williams, 45, landed on a fundraiser near and dear to her heart, the Walk to End Alzheimer's. As soon as the story was greenlit, Williams began working with the Alzheimer's Association to help make sure the language around the disease was appropriate and to make sure that we were representing the experience of someone living with it. She says, that was really critical. Williams was also determined to show the joy that comes with the walk and the community it creates. She ensured that the symbolic pinwheels were incorporated into the story and that it was still filled with humor, romance and fun. My first walk to end Alzheimer's must have been 8 or 9 years ago in New York, she recalls. The first time I went, I was just so struck with how much fun people were having despite the darkness of the disease. It's truly a joyous occasion. It's kind of this moment when you look Alzheimer's in the face and say, you're not going to take our joy. Since that time, Williams has emceed the walk alongside fellow Hallmark actor Nikki DeLoach, and the pair of them have also taken over the annual dance party to end ALZ fundraiser began by Williams' sister, Kimberly Williams Paisley. The next dance party to end ALZ event is on October 27 in Los Angeles. Click here for tickets and more information. That event funds the Alzheimer's Association's research grant program, so the money just goes directly to scientists who are working on various studies, says Williams, who gets a say on which studies receive the grants. Another way in which Falling Together honors Williams' mother is with the character of a woman working for the Alzheimer's Association, also named Linda, and the character is played by actress Linda Cash. Linda Cash really encapsulates who my mom is. This big smile, these bright alive eyes that are just constantly inspired, says Williams. That was who my mom was, which made it all the more awful when the disease really took over her brain. It was just like we said goodbye to each part of her slowly, including that kind of magical brightness in her eyes. So when we found Linda Cash and we saw her read, it was just like looking at my mom. Falling Together, which co-stars Paul Campbell, also features a strong theme around self-care and taking time to slow down. I feel like I've played characters several times who have been trying to slow down and appreciate the little things in life, but it has more emotional resonance when you're in a conversation surrounding a life-threatening disease. Williams admits, I think that's why I was even more passionate about it thematically than usual, because Alzheimer's took many joyful years from my family. I wish I had more time with my mom where we were walking through Costco and giggling. Not the hustle culture, not the throwing the big event, not the achievements, the pressure that we all face as women to raise a family and have an amazing, successful career. It's the little things. It's the lighting and the color of a leaf. I can't be reminded of that enough personally, especially when I think about the lives and the years that this disease takes in her own life. That means making a concerted effort to appreciate the little things, like making quality time with her two sons, Gus, 9, and Odie, 7. One thing I try to do is just 20 minutes a day where it's all about each of them, she says. I'm just looking in his eyes and focusing on what he's doing. Connecting with Dodson, 46, also helps. It's the thing that our busy lives takes first from us, is our ability to be able to just sit and chat. So he keeps saying, I can never get enough time talking to you. It's true. And it's also, by the way, one of the great things about us working together is being able to just hang, which is my favorite thing in the world. It is. Next up, Williams hosts Hallmark Plus's upcoming scripted series, Small Town Setup, which will be premiering next year. I'm having the greatest time of my whole life, she says. I've always had this part of me that wanted to unleash her inner Kelly Ripa, which is just like, I'm absolutely delighted by people. I love humans. I love hearing their stories. I love connecting with them. I love giving them hugs and getting to do a show that is, sure, it's a reality show, but it's not gotcha television. No one's being set up to look dumb. There's nothing salacious. We're not trying to steal anything, any shots of people in embarrassing situations. It's about helping people find love. Never miss a story. Sign up for People's free daily newsletter to stay up to date on the best of what People has to offer, from celebrity news to compelling human interest stories. Falling Together premieres on Hallmark Channel at 8 p.m. ET/PT on Saturday, September 21st, which also happens to be World Alzheimer's Day.